Note that this is where we just were. I know we're going to run out of battery, but I want you to see we have people rehearsing Shakespeare. This is Demetrius and Helena chasing each other. And as they run, we have these people up here rehearsing Shakespeare. Can you hear them? We're rehearsing a scene over here. Oh, she's wishing herself a man. Oh, that I could eat his heart in the marketplace. But that's from a different play. Let's look at what's going on over here. Now here is the Rose Playhouse. And of course the tent gets put up and the seats get put up, and eventually the Rose will be built here. You can see the buildings behind it are completely broken down. And I wonder what scene we're getting here. You have simply misused our sex. This has got to be Midsummer Night's Dream. And of course, if we were to look right here, this is where I was just filming Rape of Lucrece. And here is the carriage house, built by the people who built the Globe in London. Thatch roof. You can see, here's Yorick. You see Yorick? There he is down there. Hello, Yorick. How are you doing? You look well, actually.
This was built as the carriage house, which was the beginning of our long journey towards building the world's first reconstruction of the Rose Playhouse here in Lenox. It was started when I was here back in 2000 when I first came here, and the Rose Theater is supposed to be over there, and we're going to go read, once I finish Rape of Lucrece, we're going to go read the prologue of Romeo and Juliet, which is what I have to do next. And then I'm going to continue Romeo and Juliet through upstate New York today until I fall asleep in Buffalo, New York tonight. So it should be a big day, but I did want to finish Rape of Lucrece today before I hit the road. In front of the hair and lime plaster carriage house, built with period tools. This was also built by the same people who did the reconstruction of the Globe Theatre in London, this building. And it was built here before we did the Rose because it was A, cheaper, and B, we wanted to test and see what the original construction materials would stand up to the New England weather, as that's never been tried before. Again, we get much more snow and precipitation, well, maybe not precipitation, but much more snow, generally speaking, than Shakespeare ever did. But on to the Rape. We are at line 386 for whomever of you are following along in your hymnals. Right in the middle of the action, right before it really gets going. Here we go. Her lily hand, her rosy cheek lies under, cousining the pillow of a lawful kiss, who therefore angry seems to part in sunder, swelling on either side to want his bliss. Between whose hills her head entombed is, where like a virtuous monument she lies, to be admired of lewd, unhallowed eyes. Without the bed her other fair hand was, on the green coverlet, whose perfect white showed like an April daisy on the grass, with pearly sweat resembling dew of night. Her eyes like marigolds had sheathed their light, and canopied in darkness sweetly lay, till they might open to adorn the day. Her hair like golden threads played with her breath, O modest wantons, wanton modesty, showing life's triumph in the map of death, and death's dim look in life's mortality, each in her sleep themselves so beautify, as if between them twain there were no strife, but that life lived in death, and death in life. Her breasts like ivory globes circled with blue, a pair of maiden worlds unconquered, save of their lord no bearing yoke they knew, and him by oath they truly honored. These worlds in Tarquin new ambition bred, whom like a foul usurper went about from this fair throne to heave the owner out. What could he see but mightily he noted? What did he note but strongly he desired? What he beheld, on that he firmly doted, and in his will his willful eye he tired. With more than admiration he admired her azure veins, her alabaster skin, her coral lips, her snow-white dimpled chin. As the grim lion fawneth o'er his prey, sharp hunger by the conquest satisfied, so o'er this sleeping soul doth Tarquin stay, his rage of lust by gazing qualified, slacked not suppressed for standing by her side. His eye which late this mutiny restrains, unto a greater uproar tempts his veins. And they, like straggling slaves for pillage fighting, obdurate vassals fell exploits effecting, in bloody death and ravishment delighting, nor children's tears nor mothers' groans respecting, swell in their pride the onset still expecting. Anon his beating heart alarm striking, gives the hot charge and bids them do their liking. His drumming heart cheers up his burning eye, his eye commends the leading to his hand as proud of such a dignity, smoking with pride, marched on to make his stand on her bare breast, heart whose ranks of blue veins, as his hand did scale, left their round turrets destitute and pale. They, mustering to the quiet cabinet where their dear governess and lady lies, do tell her she is dreadfully beset, and fright her with confusion of their cries. She, much amazed, breaks ope her locked up eyes, who peeping forth this tumult to behold, are by his flaming torch dimmed and controlled. Imagine her as one in dead of night from forth dull sleep by dreadful fancy waking, that thinks she hath beheld some ghastly sprite, whose grim aspect sets every joint a-shaking. What terror is, but she in worser taking, from sleep disturbed, heedfully doth view the sight which makes supposed terror true. Rapt and confounded in 1,000 fears, like to a new-killed bird she trembling lies. She dares not look, yet winking there appears quick shifting antics, ugly in her eyes. Such shadows are the weak brain's forgeries, who, angry that the eyes fly from their lights, in darkness daunts them with more dreadful sights. His hand that yet remains upon her breast, rude ram to batter such an ivory wall, may feel her heart, poor citizen, distressed, wounding itself to death, rise up and fall, beating her bulk, that his hand shakes withal. This moves in him more rage and lesser pity, to make the breach and enter the sweet city. First, like a trumpet doth his tongue begin to sound a parley to his heartless foe, who o'er the white sheet peers her whiter chin, the reason of this rash alarm to know, which he by dumb demeanor seeks to show. But she with vehement prayers urgeth still, under what color he commits this ill. Thus he replies, the color in thy face, that even for anger makes the lily pale and the red rose blush at her own disgrace, shall plead for me and tell my loving tale. Under that color am I come to scale thy never-conquered fort. The fault is thine, for those thine eyes betray thee unto mine. Thus I forestall thee, if thou mean to chide. Thy beauty hath ensnared thee to this night. Where thou with patience must abide, must my will abide. My will that marks thee for my earth's delight, which I to conquer sought with all my might, but as reproof and reason beat dead, by thy bright beauty was it newly bred. I see what crosses my attempt will bring, I know what thorns the growing rose defends, I think the honey guarded with a sting, all this beforehand counsel comprehends, but will is deaf, and hears no heedful friends, only he hath an eye to gaze on beauty, and dotes on what he looks 'gainst law or duty. I have debated even in my soul what wrong, what shame, what sorrow I shall breed, but nothing can affection's course control, or stop the headlong fury of his speed. I know repentant tears ensue the deed, reproach, disdain, and deadly enmity, yet strive I to embrace mine infamy. This said, he shakes aloft his Roman blade, which like a falcon towering in the skies, coucheth the fowl below with his winged shade, whose crooked beak threats, if he mount, he dies. So under his insulting falchion lies harmless Lucretia, marking what he tells, with trembling fear as fowls hear falcons' bells. Lucrece, quoth he, this night I must enjoy thee. If thou deny, then force must work my way, for in thy bed I purpose to destroy thee. That done, some worthless slave of thine I'll slay, to kill thine honor with thy life's decay. And in thy dead arms do I mean to place him, swearing I slew him, seeing thee embrace him. So thy surviving husband shall remain the scornful mark of every open eye. Thy kinsmen hang their heads at this disdain, thy issue blurred with nameless bastardy, and thou, the author of their obloquy, shall have thy trespass cited up in rhymes and sung by children in succeeding times. But if thou yield, I rest thy secret friend, thy fault unknown, as is a thought unacted. A little harm done to a great good end, for lawful policy remains enacted. The poisonous symbol sometime is compacted in a purer compound, being so applied, his venom in effect is purified. Then for thy husband and thy children's sake, tender my suit, bequeath not to their lot the shame that from them no device can take, the blemish that will never be forgot, worse than a slavish wipe or birth hour's blot. For marks descried in man's nativity are nature's faults, not their own infamy. Here with a cockatrice dead-killing eye, he rouseth up himself and makes a pause, while she, the picture of pure piety, like a white hind under the gripe's sharp claws, pleads in a wilderness where there are no laws, to the rough beast that knows no gentle right, nor aught obeys but his foul appetite. But when a black-faced cloud the world doth threat, in his dim mist the aspiring mountains hiding, from earth's dark womb some gentle gust doth get, which blow these pitchy vapors from their biding, hindering their present fall by this dividing. So his unhallowed haste her words delays, and moody Pluto winks while Orpheus plays. Yet foul night-waking cat he doth but dally, while in his hold-fast foot the weak mouse panteth. Her sad behavior feeds his vulture folly, a swallowing gulf that even in plenty wanteth. His ear her prayer admits, but his heart granteth no penetrable entrance to her plaining. Tears harden lust, though marble wear with raining. Her pity-pleading eyes are sadly fixed in the remorseless wrinkles of his face. Her modest eloquence with sighs is mixed, which to her oratory adds more grace. She puts the period often from his place, and midst the sentence so her accent breaks, that twice she doth begin ere once she speaks. She conjures him by high almighty Jove, by knighthood, gentry, and sweet friendship's oaths, by her untimely tears, her husband's love, by holy human law and common troth, by heaven and earth and all the power of both, that to his borrowed bed he make retire, and stoop to honor, not to foul desire. Quoth she, reward not hospitality with such black payment as thou hast pretended. Mud not the fountain that gave drink to thee, mar not the thing that cannot be amended, and thy ill aim before thy shoot be ended. He is no woodman that doth bend his bow to strike a poor unseasonable doe. My husband is thy friend, for his sake spare me. Thyself art mighty, for thy own sake leave me. Myself a weakling, do not then ensnare me. Thou look'st not like deceit, do not deceive me. My sighs, like whirlwinds, labor hence to heave thee. If ever man were moved by woman's moans, be moved with my tears, my sighs, my groans. All which together like a troubled ocean beat at thy rocky and rack-threatening heart, to soften it with their continual motion, for stones dissolve, to water do convert. Oh, if no harder than a stone thou art, melt at my tears and be compassionate. Soft pity enters at an iron's gate. There goes one running. In Tarquin's likeness I did entertain thee. Hast thou put on his shape to do him shame? To all the host of heaven I complain me. Thou wrong'st his honor, wound'st his princely name. Thou art not what thou seem'st, and if the same, thou seem'st not what thou art, a god, a king, for kings like gods should govern everything. How will thy shame be seated in thine age, when thus thy vices bud before thy spring? If in thy hope thou darest do such outrage, what darest thou not when once thou art a king? Oh, be remembered, no outrageous thing from vassal actors can be wiped away, then king's misdeeds cannot be hid in clay. This deed will make thee only loved for fear, but happy monarchs still are feared for love. When foul offenders thou perforce must bear, when they in thee the like offences prove, if but for fear of this they will remove, for princes are the glass, the school, the book, where subjects' eyes do learn, do read, do look. And wilt thou be the school where lust shall learn? Must he in thee read lectures of such shame? Wilt thou be glass wherein it shall discern authority for sin, warrant for blame, to privilege dishonor in thy name? Thou back'st reproach against long living laud, and mak'st fair reputation but a bawd. Hast thou command? By him I gave it thee, by him that gave it thee, from a pure heart command thy rebel will. Draw not thy sword to guard iniquity, for it was lent thee all that brood to kill. Thy princely office how canst thou fulfill, when patterned by the fault foul sin may say, he learned to sin, and thou didst teach thee the way? Think but how vile a spectacle it were to view the present trespass in another. Men's faults do seldom to themselves appear, their own transgressions partially they smother. This guilt would seem death-worthy in thy brother. Oh, how are they wrapped in with infamies, that from their own misdeeds askance their eyes. To thee, my heaved-up hands appeal, not to seducing lust, thy rash relier. I sue for exiled majesty's repeal, let him return, and flattering thoughts retire. His true respect will prison false desire, and wipe the dim mist from thy doting eyne, that thou shalt see thy state and pity mine. Have done, quoth he. My uncontrolled tide turns not, but swells the higher by this let. Small lights are soon blown out, huge fires abide, and with the wind in greater fury fret. Petty streams that pay a daily debt to their salt sovereigns, which with their fresh falls haste, add to his flow, but alter not his taste. Thou art, quoth she, a sea, a sovereign king, and lo, there falls into thy boundless flood black lust, dishonor, shame, misgoverning, who seek to stain the ocean of thy blood. If all these petty ills shall change thy good, thy sea within a muddle's womb is hearsed, and not the puddle in thy sea dispersed. So shall these slaves be king, and thou their slave, thou nobly base, they basely dignified. Thou their fair life, and they thy fouler grave. Thou loathed in their shame, they in their pride. The lesser thing should not the greater hide. The cedar stoops not to the base shrub's foot, but low shrubs wither at the cedar's root. So let thy thoughts, low vassals to thy state. No more, quoth he. By heaven I will not hear thee. Yield to my love, if not, enforced hate, instead of love's coy touch, shall rudely tear thee. That done, despitefully I mean to bear thee unto the base bed of some rascal groom, to be thy partner in this shameful doom. This said, he sets his foot upon the light, for light and lust are deadly enemies. Shame folded up in blind concealing night, when most unseen, then most doth tyrannize. The wolf has seized his prey, the poor lamb cries, till with her own white fleece her voice controlled, entombs her outcry in her lips' sweet fold. For with the nightly linen that she wears, he pens her piteous clamors in her head, cooling his hot face in the chastest tears that ever modest eyes with sorrow shed. Oh, that prone lust should stain so pure a bed, the spots whereof could weeping purify. Her tears should drop on them perpetually. But she hath lost a dearer thing than life, and he hath won what he would lose again. This forced league doth force a further strife. This momentary joy breeds months of pain. This hot desire converts to cold disdain. Pure chastity is rifled of her store, and lust, the thief, far poorer than before. Look as the full-fed hound or gorged hawk, unapt for tender smell or speedy flight, make slow pursuit or altogether balk the prey within by nature they delight. So surfeit-taking Tarquin fears this night. His taste delicious, indigestion souring, devours his will that lived by foul devouring. Oh, deeper sin than bottomless conceit can comprehend in still imagination. Drunken desire must vomit his receipt, ere he can see his own abomination. While lust is in his pride, no exclamation can curb his heat or rein his rash desire, till like a jade self-will himself doth tire. And then with lank and lean discolored cheek, with heavy eye, knit brow, and strengthless pace, feeble desire, all recreant, poor and meek, like to a bankrupt beggar, wails his case. The flesh being proud, desire doth fight with grace, for there it revels, and when that decays, the guilty rebel for remission prays. So fares it with this faultful lord of Rome, who this accomplishment so hotly chased. For now against himself he sounds his doom, that through the length of time he stands disgraced. Besides, his soul's fair temple is defaced, to whose weak ruins muster troops of cares, to ask the spotted princess how she fares. She says, her subjects with foul insurrection have battered down her consecrated wall, and by their mortal fault brought in subjection her immortality, and made her thrall to living death and pain perpetual, which in her prescience she controlled still, but her foresight could not forestall their will. Even in this thought through the dark night he stealeth, a captive victor that hath lost and gained, bearing away the wound that nothing healeth, the scar that will, despite of cure, remain, leaving his spoil perplexed in greater pain. She bears the load of lust he left behind, and he the burden of a guilty mind. He like a thievish dog creeps sadly thence, she like a wearied lamb lies panting there. He scowls and hates himself for his offense. She, desperate with her nails, her flesh doth tear. He faintly flies, sweating with guilty fear. She stays, exclaiming on the direful night. He runs and chides the vanished, loathed delight. He thence departs, a heavy convertite. She there remains, a hopeless castaway. He in his speed looks for the morning light. She prays she never may behold the day. For day, quoth she, night's scapes doth open lay, and my true eyes have never practiced how to cloak offenses with a cunning brow. They think not but that every eye can see the same disgrace which they themselves behold, and therefore would they still in darkness be, to have their unseen sin remain untold. For they their guilt with weeping will unfold, and grave, like water doth eat in steel, like water that doth eat in steel, upon my cheeks what helpless shame I feel. Here she exclaims against repose and rest, and bids her eyes hereafter shall be blind. She wakes her heart by beating on her breast, and bids it leap from thence, where it may find some purer chest to clothe so pure a mind. Frantic with grief, thus breathes she forth her spite against the unseen secrecy of night. O comfort-killing night, image of hell, dim register and notary of shame, black stage for tragedies and murders fell, vast sin-concealing chaos, nurse of blame, blind muffled bawd, dark harbor for defame, grim cave of death, whispering conspirator with close-tongued treason and the ravisher. O hateful, vaporous, and foggy night, since thou art guilty of my curseless crime, muster thy mists to meet the eastern light, make war against proportioned course of time, or if thou wilt permit the sun to climb his wonted height, yet here he go to bed, knit poisonous clouds about his golden head. With rotten damps ravish the morning air, let their exhaled unwholesome breaths make sick the life of purity, the supreme fair, ere he arrive his weary noontide prick, and let thy musty vapors march so thick, that in their smoky rants his smothered light may set at noon, and make perpetual night. Were Tarquin knight, as he is but night's child, the silver-shining queen he would disdain, her twinkling handmaids too by him defiled, through night's black bosom should not peep again. So should I have co-partners in my pain, and fellowship in woe doth woe assuage, as palmers' chat makes short their pilgrimage. Where now I have no one to blush with me, to cross their arms and hang their heads with mine, to mask their brows and hide their infamy, but I alone must sit and pine, seasoning the earth with showers of silver brine, mingling my talk with tears, my grief with groans, poor wasting monuments of lasting moans. O night, thou furnace of foul-reeking smoke, let not the jealous day behold that face, which underneath thy black all-hiding cloak immodestly lies martyred with disgrace. Keep still possession of thy gloomy place, that all the faults which in thy reign are made may likewise be sepulchred in thy shade. Make me not object to the telltale day. The light will show, charactered in my brow, the story of sweet chastity's decay, the impious breach of holy wedlock vow. Yea, the illiterate that know not how to cipher what is writ in learned books will quote my loathsome trespass in my looks. The nurse, to still her child, will tell my story, and fright her crying babe with Tarquin's name. The orator to deck his oratory will couple my reproach to Tarquin's shame. Feast-finding minstrels, tuning my defame, will tie the hearers to attend each line, how Tarquin wronged me, I, Collatine. Let my good name, that senseless reputation for Collatine's dear love, be kept unspotted. If that be made a theme for disputation, the branches of another root are rotted, and undeserved reproach to him allotted. That is as clear from this attaint of mine, as ere this was pure to Collatine, as I ere this was pure to Collatine. O unseen shame, invisible disgrace! O unfelt sore, crest-wounding private scar! Reproaches stamped in Collatinus' face, and Tarquin's eye may read the mot afar, how he in peace is wounded, not in war. Alas, how many bear such shameful blows, which not themselves, but he that gives them, knows. If Collatine, thine honor lay in me, from me by strong assault it is bereft. My honey lost, and I, a drone-like bee, have no perfection of my summer left, but robbed and ransacked by injurious theft. In thy weak hive a wandering wasp hath crept, and sucked the honey which thy chaste bee kept. Yet am I guilty of thy honor's wrack. Yet for thine honor did I entertain him. Coming from thee I could not put him back, for it had been dishonor to disdain him. Besides of weariness he did complain him, and talked of virtue, O unlooked for evil, when virtue is profane in such a devil. Why should the worm intrude the maiden bud, or hateful cuckoos hatch in sparrows' nests, or toads infect fair founts with venom mud, or tyrant folly lurk in gentle breasts, or kings be breakers of their own behests? But no perfection is so absolute that some impurity doth not pollute. The aged man that coffers up his gold is plagued with cramps and gouts and painful fits, and scarce eyes hath his treasure to behold, but like still pining Tantalus he sits, and useless barns the harvest of his wits, having no other pleasure of his gain but torment that it cannot cure his pain. So then he hath it when he cannot use it, leaves it to be mastered by his young, who in their pride do presently abuse it. Their father was too weak, and they too strong, to hold their cursed blessed fortune long. The sweets we wish for turn to loathed sours, even in the moments that we call them ours. Unruly blasts wait on the tender spring, unwholesome weeds take root with precious flowers. The adder hisses where the sweet birds sing. What virtue breeds, iniquity devours. We have no good that we can say is ours, but ill-annexed opportunity, or kills his life, or else his quality. O opportunity, thy guilt is great, if 'tis thou that executest that traitor's treason. Thou setst the wolf where he the lamb may get. Whoever plots the sin, thou pointst the season. 'Tis thou that spurn'st at right, at law, at reason, and in thy shady cell, where none may spy him, sits sin to seize the souls that wander by him. Thou makest the vestal violate her oath. Thou blowst the fire when temperance is thawed. Thou smotherest honesty. Thou murderest troth. Thou foul abettor, thou notorious bawd, thou plantest scandal and displacest laud, thou ravisher, thou traitor, thou false thief, thy honey turns to gall, thy joy to grief. Thy secret pleasure turns to open shame, thy private feasting to a public fast, thy smoothing titles to a ragged name, thy sugared tongue to bitter wormwood taste. Thy violent vanities can never last. How comes it then, vile opportunity, being so bad, such numbers seek for thee? When wilt thou be the humble suppliant's friend, and bring him where his suit may be obtained? When wilt thou sort an hour great strifes to end, or free that soul which wretchedness hath chained? Give physic to the sick, ease to the pained, the poor, lame, blind, halt, creep, cry out for thee, but they ne'er meet with opportunity. The patient dies while the physician sleeps. The orphan pines while the oppressor feeds. Justice is feasting while the widow weeps. Advice is sporting while infection breeds. Thou grantst no time for charitable deeds. Wrath, envy, treason, rape, and murder's rages. Thy heinous hours wait on them as their pages. When truth and virtue have to do with thee, 1,000 crosses keep them from thy aid. They buy thy help, but sin ne'er gives a fee. He gratis comes, and thou art well apaid, as well to hear as grant what he hath said. My Collatine would else have come to me, when Tarquin did, but he was stayed by thee. Guilty thou art of murder and of theft, guilty of perjury and subornation, guilty of treason, forgery, and shift, guilty of incest, that abomination, an accessory by thine inclination to all sins past and all that are to come, from the creation to the general doom. Misshapen time, copesman of ugly night, swift subtle post, carrier of grisly care, eater of youth, false slave to false delight, base watch of woes, sin's pack-horse, virtue's snare, thou nursest all and murderest all that are. O hear me then, injurious shifting time, be guilty of my death since of my crime. Why hath thy servant opportunity betrayed the hours thou gavest me to repose, cancelled my fortunes, and enchained me to endless date of never-ending woes? Time's office is to find the hate of foes, to eat up errors by opinion bred, not spend the dowry of a lawful bed. Time's glory is to calm contending kings, to unmask falsehood and bring truth to light, to stamp the seal of time in aged things, to wake the morn and sentinel the night, to wrong the wronger till he render right, to ruinate proud buildings with thy hours and smear with dust their glittering golden towers, to fill with wormholes stately monuments, to feed oblivion with decay of things, to blot old books and alter their contents, to pluck the quills from ancient ravens' wings, to dry the old oak's sap and cherish springs, to spoil antiquities of hammered steel and turn the giddy round of fortune's wheel, to show the beldam daughters of their daughter, to make the child a man, the man a child, to slay the tiger that doth live by slaughter, to tame the unicorn and lion wild, to mock the subtle in themselves beguiled, to cheer the plowmen with increaseful crops, and waste huge stones with little water drops.